Today we have the honor to talk to Mr. Christian Sautter, Vice Mayor of Paris. Welcome to China Daily.
Thank you.
First, I want to ask you, what is your purpose of your current visit to China?
As Vice Mayor of Paris, I'm in charge of economic development of Paris and of its international attractiveness. So the purpose of my visit to China is to convince Chinese entrepreneurs to invest in Paris, to create their European headquarters, to create research facilities, to build hotels, and to create many jobs for French people and Chinese people, obviously.
Okay. So what makes Paris different than the other European cities that in terms of attracting foreign investment, especially Chinese investment?
Paris is right at the center of the Eurozone, which means that we use the euro, the goods, the persons can circulate freely in this area. You have instant access to a very wide market of 380 million consumers, and I think this is important. And for Chinese companies, I think that this opportunity to be in a kind of hub of the European community is quite profitable. It's both efficient, and Paris has a quality of life which makes work and leisure easier than in other cities. And I tell you a secret, the real estate is cheaper in Paris than in London, for example.
So could you tell us what industries might be especially attractive to the Chinese investment?
Well, we have, for example, in France, a research tax credit, which is quite beneficial. You can deduct from your corporate tax a big share of your research expenditure. And companies like Google and Microsoft on one side, but also Huawei and ZTE on the other side, have enjoyed this facility. So you have in Paris a huge pool of good researchers, good mathematicians, and to create innovative company in information technologies, for example, like e-commerce, you can find a very big supply of excellent people at a moderate price, and you have this research tax credit, which is quite advantageous.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned some big companies such as Google, and I'm curious about how are the small and medium-sized business doing in France? And is there potential for Chinese business to develop in France with great success?
Maybe you don't know that last year the Chinese direct investment in Paris were second only to the American investment. They were before Japan, before Germany, before UK, before Italy, and most of the projects coming to Paris, and when I speak about Paris, I speak about Grand Paris, 12 million inhabitants and many very good manpower. On this market, you have very good opportunities for small and medium companies, and we have also clusters for high-tech companies where small and medium companies can work with universities and work also with bigger companies. And foreigners and French, they work together without any problem.
Could you give us more examples of Chinese investment working with French enterprise?
Well, I spoke about Huawei or about ZTE. We have also investment in design, in fashion. We have Chinese investment in design and fashion. We have investment in tourism, which is a very important industry of Paris. We had last year 29 million visitors, and including 180,000 Chinese at least, and the number of tourists is increasing, is doubling every 10 years, but the number of tourists from China, they are doubling every 3 years. So we need tourist industry. We need new hotels where you can have your breakfast in Chinese breakfast. You see?
Wow, that's really nice. And you mentioned there were a lot of Chinese tourists in France, and recently tourism. There's a growing safety concern among Chinese tourists as well as investors. Is there a way to address those concerns and ensure Chinese tourists and investors' safety?
Yes, this is a very serious problem. And yesterday I met Madame l'Ambassadeur of France in China, and she talked about it. And I can tell you that the government and the police authorities are very keen to find a solution. We want Chinese tourists and Chinese businessmen to feel completely safe in France and in Paris, and we will find solution. The tourists have to be more careful because they are not in China, but we have to do our share of the security business, and we will do it. I will write to the préfet de police, the highest authority in police in Paris, to tell him that I come back from China and that this is a very serious problem which should be addressed very rapidly.
Oh, it's good to know that. And since tourism is a strong industry in France, and I want to know if there are other strong business and industries that Chinese people could invest in, and what are some of the policies you want to help these Chinese companies?
Well, finance is one sector where Chinese banks could be very active in Paris, and we have the plan. The French government had the plan to foster the internationalization of the renminbi, and we would like, and we will work with the Chinese banks. We will work with the Chinese banks to have offshore renminbi in Paris. I think this is very important. Our financial industry has welcomed Bank of China, has welcomed more recently the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and we expect other Chinese banks to come to Paris and to help to make out of the yuan a real international currency, and we are ready to help for that.
Okay. How do you see China's future in France in terms of investment and business?
Well, I think that the Chinese economy is quite dynamic, 7% a year or more, and so the Chinese companies are improving qualitatively. They are so pretty soon they will have to work on the European market. They will have to work with European high-tech companies, build sound partnerships, and I think Paris is the proper place for this kind of joint venture between China and France. And I'm sure that there are already some very good examples, but the number of Chinese-French joint ventures both ways will increase very rapidly.
So 2014 marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment between China and France. So will there be any business cooperation further in the next year?
The French president will come very soon to China for an official visit, and I remember in 1983, I was in the staff of French President Mitterrand, and I came with him for this first visit. And I think presidential visits are thresholds, you know. And I think it will start a new phase of cooperation, not only to commemorate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between de Gaulle and China, which was quite revolutionary at that time. But also, I think we will move into a new decade of economic and cultural and political cooperation between China and France, and more generally between China and Europe.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Sautter, for talking to us today. And I wish you have a pleasant journey in China.
Thank you so much. Thank you.